What we want to talk about today is making family first. Isn't that a neat thought? Family first.
Well, it is a great thought, and I think everyone would agree, because we're all part of a family, aren't we? I mean, sometimes we think of family, well, there's got to be mom and dad and, the children, but all of us are somebody's children, right? All of us are a part of a family. And we live in a time when it's very difficult to keep the family first. We've been in homes where everyone is under the same roof, in the same living room, and we're in that living room with them. They're not connected. One of them's on the iPad. That's nothing wrong with an iPad. I have one, okay? One of them's on their iPhone. One of them's on their laptop. And one of them is, you understand the picture. They're all in the same room, but the family is disconnected. And we live in a society it's becoming more and more difficult to keep the onslaught of the busyness of the world and the entertainment of the world and all the aspects. It's hard to keep the family really connected and keep it first. So that's what we want to talk about this morning.
So we have a thought question for you. We don't want you to answer out loud. We simply want you to process this in your mind very honestly, okay? This is an opportunity to really be honest with ourselves. How much time have you spent together in your family, with your family, in the past week? And we're going to make it from this past Sunday to the Sunday before, okay? So from a week ago Sunday to this past Sunday, we want you to think about how much time you've actually spent together as a family. Okay, most of you should have some kind of a time. Now we're going to ask a few of you to share how much time that has been. Nobody wants to answer?
My son, who's 35, he still lives at home with my husband and I. We always have our family meal together, and on Sabbath evening before.
Just how much time? Just a time frame.
Roughly, I should say 7 or 8 hours, really.
7 or 8 hours, okay, in the week?
All right.
Anybody else? All right. Usually we have, did I see a hand over here? 0, okay. Usually we have an audience with children and adults, older adults, parents, younger adults, children, teens. And it was interesting. Everywhere we've presented this, when that's that dimension in the audience, the parents usually give themselves a very high score.
Well, higher than the young people do.
Higher than the young people do. And sometimes the children say maybe an hour, maybe in half an hour. Sometimes children say nothing. None. So this is important because we want to discover why we have such differing perspectives on this question.
And sometimes, and as we share together this morning, sometimes we parents, because of how we view life and the responsibilities, we think that just because we might be together in the same room, that's giving time. And as the young people respond, they're saying, no, I don't want it to be just time when dad is on the computer. I want it to be time when dad and mom can be connected with us and we can be doing something that's focused on fun, something different. And so you can share that little study that...
Well, it is becoming a huge problem in all first world societies, all first world cultures, that the family unit is deteriorating. That's very obvious, isn't it? We see an increased rise of child and youth rebellion and all kind of issues that they're dealing with. We see an increase in rise in drug and alcohol and other type of abuses, in immorality. Everything is on a serious rise. And in the United States, universities are doing research to figure out, why is this a problem? Why are we seeing younger and younger and younger children so disconnected, so rebellious, so much into these forms of abuses? And so in this study, they did it across the nation from children who were kindergarten age all the way up through high school age. So children, young people, teenagers in the home. And it was given to a random number of young people, and it was done so they couldn't determine if it was a two-parent home or one-parent home. They couldn't determine if it was a home where they were lower socioeconomically or they were very affluent. It was across the board, a mix. And they found something very interesting. The results of those studies, those surveys showed that none of those other factors that we've tried to attribute, these are the causes to, had any relevance at all to what is happening to our country. The one common denominator that they found that made children, teenagers, youth much more successful was this: that these young people, whether they had just a mom at home or just a dad at home, whether they were on poverty or they were extremely wealthy, these children who came from homes where parents or parent had at least one meal a day with those young people, with their children, with their teens, with their youth, with their kids, whatever term you want to put on it, one meal a day, every day of the week, together, where they sat at the same table, they ate the same food, and there was no other distractions or intrusions. That means that nobody's on their device, nobody's, watching the news across the room. They were communicating during the meal about real life, one meal a day. Those young people from those homes, the results showed that these young people had a 50% less risk of any kind of form of abuse. 50% less. Just by one meal a day where the parent and children are talking about real life. These young people from those homes had better scholastic and academic scores. It's not because they're smarter, their IQ is higher. It is simply because they have learned how to process real life. So they did better academically than their counterparts, who actually had higher IQs than many of those children did. And last but not least, and this is very important, is that all of these young people, whether they were 5 or 6 years old or 17 or 18 years old, and everyone in between, every one of these children and teens had better social skills than all their counterparts. Those children who come from maybe two-parent homes they're very affluent, they have everything they want, and they are totally disconnected. They never eat together, they never do things together. So these children who come from a home where they eat one meal together every single day, process real life, talk together, discuss, how was your day at work, Dad? What happened in school today? Who did you talk to? What did your friends say? What did you learn? All those kind of real conversations that need to happen. Those children, those teens related better socially, not just to their peers, but to everyone above or below them in age. And we used to think this was normal. Now this is becoming abnormal because children and young people have been given so much freedom, so much independence, and we've been so disconnected from the strong family unit, whether a single parent or, again, a two-parent home, where they don't really communicate, that these young people they don't know how to communicate on these other levels. So these young people from this study show that they can cross all age barriers. They know how to talk to the older people, they can play with little kids in the area, and they really do much better.
So let's bring this for personal application to us sitting here today. This is so important that we recognize, where is our family? Where are the children? Where are the youth? Okay? Oh, well, they're sitting around the table. Well, that's good. I hope that they are. I hope that you're having at least one meal a day together, but are they really there? Is Dad really there? Are we really connecting at that time? It is shocking because of the kind of work that we do and the families that we meet all over the world in every different culture. We find the common denominator on the negative side is that when families aren't connecting, when they're at the same meal table, if they happen to have the schedule that corresponds, they're still not connecting. If that's happening in your home, if you're finding that your young person would rather be connecting with everybody else out there, I mean, this may be shocking to you, but one of the studies that's been done in the United States that's it's sad, okay, is that they're finding that young people, 7 to 9 years old, don't even know how to verbally communicate with their peers. They are texting their peers. They are in the same room together, and they are not speaking. They are texting. Now maybe that's not happening yet here in New Zealand, but
It is.
it's big enough in the United States. It's a big enough place that they're finding this as, well, it's almost being connected with things like television. If you can believe this, now in the United States, there's a huge group of people that are calling for one night a week, no TV. Secular world calling for no TV. Because between the social networking, with all the devices, with the communication breaking down in the home, and with television, you put all that together, and you've got problems with the family not being first anymore, not being second. The family is disintegrating. I mean, back when I was a boy, we might have watched 2 hours of TV at night, or maybe 3. There was only about 5 programs you could watch. Tells you I'm 57 years old, okay? But at least we were together as a family, but that's not to say that it was the best use of time. But now there are so many things that are disconnecting families that there's a total disconnect, and a lot of young people today would rather be with somebody else than their parents. And that's because, to a large degree, parents have become so busy having to make an income to keep up with whatever lifestyle we think has to happen, that when the young person comes to us and says, can we go out and play? It's like, what? It's shocking to us as we travel to various venues and do meetings and seminars with large and small groups of people that many of the young people complain. When we have our recreation time, they complain, or some of them, it's happy because this is the first time my dad has played with me all year. They're at these meetings that we're having for the family. And so many times parents, we're disconnecting from our children, and then we wonder in the teenage years why they're disconnecting from us. We're wondering why they don't have time for us now when we haven't had time for them. And it won't happen by accident. It happens by purposeful design.
Both my husband and I are from medical backgrounds. We had medical careers. And I can remember after our first 2 children were born, walking down the street and listening to 2 children. And one of them said to the other one, "If it's anything I hate, it's a cheery broad in the morning," speaking of her teacher. So
This is our children or other
no, our children.
Yeah.
I heard these other children. So this is, okay, our children are in their 30s. So we're going back 25, 27 years ago, and that attitude was already beginning to build. That was a wake-up call to me as a parent. I thought, wait, we should be happy in the home, right? We should be enjoying life. Our children should respect their teachers. So it was a wake-up call to me that as a mother, I had the opportunity to make a difference in my children's life, not just to let them go out and be influenced by the attitudes of their peers, but to make a difference. So I made a very hard choice, and I pulled away from my career in order to be at home with our children. And so we want to talk about some of the things that we can do to kind of recover some of the damage that has been done, right? Go back. We have to go back to the old ways. We go back in society 50 years, and there maybe 70 years now. There wasn't TV, or 50 years there wasn't much TV, right? And families, if you in the United States, all the old homes had big porches. You call them verandas down here? I don't know. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Now you don't see those. You see big homes with really, small yards, because there's no room to go outside because it's all inside, and everything is very beautiful, but there is not time to connect. It's not sit on the porch and talk and relax and enjoy one another and play together in the yard. Those days are gone, and we need to go back and redeem that. So we're going to share with you a few things this morning that we have done in our family that has made a tremendous difference in the outcome of our young people, and has made a tremendous difference in the unity and the joy we still experience as a family, even though we have 3 grown adult children with now grandchildren. So the first one we want to talk about is family talk time. We made a decision that every evening, how many evenings? Every evening. Now, we did eat our meals together, and we did have conversation at the table, but we added one little bit. We put in 30 minutes every evening that we would sit together as a family with no other interruptions, no TV. We didn't even have a TV in the home, but no other interruptions, and we would just sit and talk about life, the day. How was it? What did you enjoy? What was your favorite activity? What was the hardest subject you did? And then look at things that we could process with our children. Let them share what was on their hearts, their joys, their fun, their disappointments, their blunders, whatever they were. We wanted that time to connect with them. Just 30 minutes in the evening. It was phenomenal to see the results.
Now that might seem like no big deal, but probably today, at least in most situations, to think of allocating 30 minutes in the evening. People say, I don't have time. Well, time is something all of us have, rich or poor, young or old. We all have 24 hours. And we all have choices about how we will use that time. And we want to say to you today that looking back on that, and we were just all together with our whole family over Christmas, and the memories that we discussed over the Christmas holiday were heartwarming, because that time that we invested, I can't tell you what I didn't get done in work during that half hour, but I can tell you what I got done with my children. And I can tell you how it knit our hearts together. And I can't put a price on taking that time. And the appreciation that our young people have expressed to us in their later years, our youngest is 27, our oldest is 32, that would be reward enough just for the appreciation now that they're adults and they understand the challenges of busy life. And so making that time, yes, it's a challenge. Yes, some of you young people might not even want to talk to you, and that's painful, because you haven't taken time for them maybe when they were, little. But I tell you, once they recognize that you really mean it and that you really will have time. I remember the first time we were here in New Zealand, and we always give Doug kind of a hard time, because we say he gets his good value out of his speakers. We were in 14 different beds, 17 nights. Okay? But I tell you what, we still took time to talk. Not a half an hour, but before the end of every day, we took time, wherever we were, to have a little connection time with our family. It pays off. So no matter how busy we might be, if we give the message to our young people that we're not too busy for you because you are the most important part of our life that we have. Not just what everybody else is telling us is important. Not what all the call for our time. But if our young people know that they are very important to us, important enough to set aside that time, they will love and respect us for that.
So take time with your family. Now, some of you may say, well, our kids are all grown and gone. It's just my husband and I. It's just my sister and I that live together. Whatever your family unit is, you still need the time. we found that out after our young people all grew up and left home, that what we found ourselves doing was pouring ourselves into work. More work, because work
it
never goes
ends.
away. Unless you have a life where your work goes away, we don't. It always is there. And so we found out that we could work till 8 o'clock at night. And one evening, I got up from my desk, I had a little desk in the kitchen, and I went to my husband's office, and I said, honey, are we still a family? It was a question that was very deep, because I recognized that we aren't having the time we used to have. And he, pushed his chair back, he looked at me, and he said, yes, we're still a family. From that evening on, we cut our work back to a reasonable hour, and we have now the evening hours as a family of 2. And we enjoy being together and doing fun things, from reading books to doing outside activities or work projects or going out.
Work project's different than our regular work.
Yeah, for us it's recreation to go out and, fix a garden or whatever. But we still need that time. If you are living alone, you still have family somewhere, communicate with them. Maybe you can't do it every day, but use those telephones and, the computer for email or however, and make connection. Build those bonds strong. When I am home, I call my mother home back in the United States. I call my mother almost every night. I was going to say every night, but occasionally I might miss it because I'm on the different time zone and don't get to her before she go to bed. My mother waits for that phone call because she lives alone. We're still family. She's still an important part of our lives. Make those moments count.
Because we made this commitment to have family talk time, we made a connection with our young people so that as they got older, and even though they did things or experienced things that were difficult, sometimes painful, the connection between us is never broken. Therefore, they could come to us and talk to us about things that, while they might be painful, they could still come to us. And so the second area that we want to talk about real quickly is, we call it family council. That means there were times that just family talk time was not enough. Somebody, might have been one of us as parents or one of the young people, felt like something wasn't going right. And so anybody in the family could call a family council. That means that night, instead of regular family talk time, that night we would have a family council. And the person who was desiring it would have the first opportunity to speak uninterrupted. And they could share what was on their heart, and then we would talk about it as a family. We would process it. We would look for solutions to it. And by the end of most family councils, sometimes we had to spill it over to the next day, but in most cases, we could come to a solution and understanding that we could take into the next day ahead or the next week ahead. And again, it was a tool. And it was a great blessing, because a lot of what happens in families is communication breaks down, not just in the marriage, but communication breaks down among the family members, siblings, parent, child. And sometimes we need to come together and say, this is how it looks to me, this is how it's affecting me, and let everybody else become involved and look for solutions.
So don't be afraid of that. Our young people have things on their minds that they would love to share with us as their parents, as adults. And sometimes we have the impression that they're disinterested. But even here at this venue, we have had young people tell us,
That's right.
I can't talk to mom and dad. I can't talk to mom and dad. Why is that? Well, maybe they don't think they're going to be interested. Maybe they don't think they're going to like how mom and dad will like what they have on their thoughts. And so young people just close off, shut down, and then they go underground and they go through peers and talk about the things that are troubling them. But their peers don't have any more life experience than they do, and so the result of that type of breakdown leads to big problems. Amen. So we need to seek out after our young people, little ones, older ones, and ask questions, not yes and no questions. How'd it go today at school? Good. Well, we didn't accept good and the one-word answers. Well, what does that mean? Define good. What happened? And begin to draw them out. Your young people will open up if they feel like you are really interested in what they have to say, and you're not there just to, put down what's on their mind. Be willing to hear what they have to say. Now I want to talk about another aspect that will really bond families together. And it's something that is very much neglected everywhere. And it's called family fun time. Family recreation, family playtime, whatever word you want to put on it. But we need that. Children enjoy playing. And most of the time what our young people hear, what do the kids hear? Just go play, just go play. And we provide them, stores worth of toys and entertainment to keep them away from us. We need to not give them so many things to keep them away from us. We need to take time to do things fun with our children. And the more simple, the more natural, the more outdoorsy, if I can use that word, natural things to do. Bike riding, hiking, I don't know, you got lakes around here, go canoeing. Look for things you can do. Your children will be creative. They will give you ideas. They have great imaginations. So give time to your children when they're little and as teens, and even as ours are in their adult life. We still do fun things together because those are some of their happiest memories. And we could go on for hours talking about different things we did, but we'll give you a couple simple examples because we want to talk about little ones and older ones, things that we can do with our young people, but have fun with them. In our home, we decided we would put in 30 minutes every day for playtime. Doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it does if you fill up your time, if you fill up your schedule. But I would say that most people fill their schedule with about 4 to 6 hours of unnecessary things, most of which has to do with television, or other type of, cruising the internet, recreational shopping, or whatever your habits may be, tinkering in the garage. And it is a separation, a disconnect from the family unit. So make time every day to play. We did that 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, and each day a different person got to choose the activity, what they wanted to do. And I remember one day our son, he was probably about 9 years old. He loved to ride bicycles. And of course, boys tend to pick more outdoorsy, runny, those kind of things, and exploring. And so sometimes we as mothers would rather, especially after a long day, we'd rather not get too excited about going out and doing something like that. But we made that commitment, and he picked the bike ride. But it wasn't going to be a regular bike ride. He had figured out that why don't we hook the red wagon to the back of the bicycle and we will pull the parents up and down the road. Because he remembered as a little boy how much fun it was to sit in the little red wagon when Daddy pulled him up and down the road.
Or all three of them.
Or all three of them in the wagon. And so I thought, I was keen for the bike ride, but when it came to sitting in the red wagon, so my husband said,
well, it won't be me because I'm too heavy for them to pull, so it'll have to be you, dear.
So I started to think about, of course, where we lived in Montana. When I talk about the road, it is, like this, with hills and curves, and there is nothing level where we lived at all. And so I said, I'm kind of heavy, and I don't think you're going to do it. Our son, at 9 years old, already had it figured out. Okay, Mother, it's okay. I'm going to tie a rope to the back of my bicycle off the seat, thread it through the handle of the wagon, and tie the other end to Emily's bicycle off the back of her seat. So now you got two of us pulling. And I said, okay, yeah, you could probably do that, but you know what? We're going to be going up some hills. Yeah, that's okay. We can do it, Mother. And then we're going to be going down hills. And I know that when weight in the back is heavier than what's happening in the front, that I might be passing them in a wagon with no way to control the thing. He'd already figured that out. I've already got it figured out, Mother. We're going to keep, when we feel that there's no tension, we're going to speed up and we're going to pedal as fast as we can. We'll keep tension on the rope. Every excuse I could start to think of, they had already had a resolve for it. And then he said to me, Mother, we're even going to put a 4-inch foam pad in the bottom of the wagon so that you can ride in comfort. How can you turn that down? I said, please let me at least walk to the top of the hill, because coming out of our driveway it was a very steep hill to the road. They gave me that privilege. I walked to the top. I got in the wagon. I am ready for my exciting, thrilling, fun ride. And I was white-knuckled. And we started down the road and up the hills and down the hills, and it was going great. And I started to relax, and I was really enjoying this, and they were giggling and laughing, and how you doing, Mother? And the other sister would come by, and my husband would say, how you doing, honey? Oh, I'm having fun. And now we're on our way home. We'd gone a couple of miles up the road. We turned around. We're coming back. And as we're coming toward home, we're coming down this long hill. And the road in the mountains, I don't know if you do that in New Zealand, but in Montana, because we get a lot of snow, the roads are cantered off to the side.
Canted, yeah.
Canted? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that they're not level. So you got the mountain, they cut a road off with a little bit of a cant to it.
Gravel road.
A gravel road, and then it goes off the other side of the mountain. So they're just cut off the edge of the mountain. So we're coming back, and as we're coming down this hill, I sense that the wagon is starting to track closer and closer and closer to the downside of the road. And then it happened. The front wheel of the wagon went over the edge. And I catapulted out of that wagon over the edge of the hill, down the side, and God was so good. I landed in a juniper bush. I could have landed in a wild rose bush. And wild roses are like domestic roses. They have big thorns on them. We had a lot of those in the mountains. But it was, of course, as soon as they felt the weight gone, Mother, where are you? And they're looking back, and the wagon's flopping around on the road, and Mother is nowhere to be seen. I am down the bottom, not to the bottom, but down the hill, planted in a big, lovely, full juniper bush, laughing hysterically. What a great ride. He's 27. 18 years ago this happened, and I'm here to tell the story, right? So we can have fun with our children.
I don't know if that's encouraging the people.
Well, it was one of the things they talked about when we got together for Christmas. Oh, do you remember? Because these are the things that make memories, that bind our hearts together.
So, does that resonate with your heart? Are our young people important to us? We know that they are. But if we know that they are, let's live like they are. I can't tell you how many men I've talked to. Men in their 60s and 70s, some with tears, who said things like this to me. If only I would have understood. I remember one man, tears running down his face, saying, I gave them the finest education, a nice home. They never wanted for anything except me. And I didn't give them me. I was too busy giving them everything else and working to provide for it. And all of my children, he said, at one time or another have come to me and said, Dad, the only thing we ever really wanted was you. Just time with you. That's a heart cry. And so wherever we find ourselves, we can begin to make a difference. Like we often say in marriage, we don't care how good your marriage is. That's great if it's good. It can get better. So if you're sitting here thinking, yeah, well, we do this, but quite honestly, most people know as we're sitting here today that we're not doing this with our young people. We're not taking the time. We're not taking the time like we ought to be, and as a result, the young people are finding other confidence to talk to. Other young people who say, yeah, I understand. And then when things get difficult, they're not coming to mom and dad because they haven't had that connection where dad says, yeah, you're the most important person in my life. We made a commitment that and I as a father made a commitment that I would take time to walk and talk with each of my children on a very regular basis. And it was very interesting that each of our young people, 2 girls and a boy, each of them had a different way of relating, but all of them related the same on this. Once they knew that they really had my heart and my attention, it came out. One of them, I could walk for 5 minutes and they were like an open book. The other one, our oldest daughter, if she became convinced that my mind was not preoccupied with all the other things, she said to me one day, she said, Father, I can always tell when you say, so how you doing, Allison? She said, I can always tell whether you want me to say, fine, and move on, or if you really want to hear how I'm doing. Now, that's pretty insightful, isn't it? When our young people know that we have a heart to hear and a heart to connect, our son, sometimes it would take 20 or 30 minutes to really be convinced that he could really open up his heart. And it's been a blessing. Some of the things that he's gone through, some of the decisions that he's made, but through that whole process, there's always been that connection that we can communicate. One of the things that I think every parent needs to understand is even when a young person doesn't make some of the decisions we'd like them to make, we have to realize how God has treated us. Are we treated like we deserve?
No.
Have we been a good child to God in some things? No, we haven't been very good children ourselves sometimes. We haven't been very obedient children, or we haven't followed the way we should. Sometimes our children make decisions, and the thing that we have to convince them of, and it can only happen if it's real in our hearts, and that is, you can't do anything to keep me from loving you. I might not agree with you. I might not be able to participate with you, but you can't keep me from loving you. In fact, I love you more today with what's happening in your life. When that message comes through, and it'll only come through if it's there.
That's right.
That message comes through, I tell you, you will have a young person that, in spite of what they're dealing with, they will know that they can always come to an anchor point in their parents.
So we're talking about family first. We want to keep our families in the right place. We don't want to let the things of the world that we live in consume it. We don't want to let our own selfish desires and interests put it aside, because the real peace and joy we have is to have human connection, close bonds of love and respect and joy. And so we have to be intentional about keeping it alive and vibrant. So we talked about daily communication. And we talked about it from the perspective of parent to children, sibling to sibling, husband and wife. If you're alone and you can, call a sister and a brother and, an aunt or whatever, keep the lines of communication open. Daily communication. Then we talked about the importance of family counsel. How do we resolve differences, misunderstandings, conflicts in the home? Because we're going to have them. But if we can sit down and process it in a positive way and look for solutions that are tangible and that we're all a part of participating in. What young people resent the most are rules that they have to do that mom and dad don't. If you have a problem with your child being disrespectful and talking back and screaming at you as a parent, and you say that's not allowed, then you need to see how you're talking to them and to one another.
Amen.
So whatever rules are in the home, they apply to everybody. And there you will find that brings security and respect and cooperation. So that's a a beautiful tool, family council, to establish the needs that you have in your home. And then whatever you do to make the solution, make it count and make everybody accountable to it. And then we talked about the need for family fun time, recreation, playtime. Our children need that. If you notice here at this venue, it's the children out playing, and moms and dads are in their little conversations. Now, that's not bad, but
Might not be bad.
But what a difference it would make if some of you parents would go and get on the swing with your child, go down the slide with them, jump on the trampoline with them, or whatever it is that they're doing. Just involve yourself. If it's 10 minutes, it'll be the highlight of their day. You will be amazed at the joy they have when you get involved. And for us, when our children laughed, and we shared the fact that kind of our talk time disintegrated because we just, got chewed up and swallowed up by our work. We recovered that, but we also recovered our fun time together. And we have different things we do to be fun, and it doesn't necessarily happen every day, but we have our own little ways of making life spontaneous and fun. We may go play tennis down at the school, high school tennis court when nobody's around or something like that. We may go on a bike ride. We have a little game that we call Gotcha Last.
Catch me if you can.
Oh, Catch Me If You Can. Gotcha Last was with the children. That's right. Catch Me If You Can. And it's something I kind of created to keep a little fun in our marriage. And he likes it too. Actually, he's done it to me too. But what I usually do is it'll just be a thought, and I have this thought, catch me if you can. And I know he can catch me. It's not hard. I mean, you could give me a 100-yard start and he would catch me. So when I do this, I have to think strategically, can I make it to a point of safety? Usually the house door or a door, which is kind of like where, I made it before you did and he didn't catch me. So we were in Romania. We were there doing some venues over there, some seminars, and we are staying in one of the old communist buildings on the 5th floor. And most of the buildings from the old days didn't have elevators, so you take the stairs, and they're concrete stairwells, they're block buildings. And so I am going up the stairs. We're walking together after breakfast, and we're going up to our room on the 5th floor, and I had this thought, catch me if you can. I never said anything to him. I just picked up my pace a little bit, and I got a half a flight of stairs ahead of him. And then I looked over the railing, and I said, catch me if you can. And then I just took off running as fast as I could up those stairs. And my heart was pounding. I was so panicked that I could get to that door before he would catch me. I could hear him coming up the stairs behind me. I'm going to get you, like that. And he's running, and he's saying, be careful, don't fall, because I had broken my arm the year before. And so I'm being really careful, but I'm running as fast as I can up the stairs, and I can hear him. He is getting closer and closer and closer behind me. And he
Turns
says,
into a real drama.
go ahead, dear.
So it's so funny, even hearing her talk about it, because she loves to do this, but she gets panic is really the word. She just hears me getting closer and closer. It's like she can't stand it, but she loves it.
Anyway, I got to the door, and he got to me at the same time, so I don't know if I quite won or
You were
not.
safe.
I was safe. He says, Jenny, you're safe. But I always get a hug at the end of that. And maybe, it's just a fun way to have a little interaction between us. It's something that we created that works for us. So find something that works for you is the point. But the embarrassing thing is we have to be careful where we do these things, because we're in Romania. And they don't act that way there, okay, first of all.
Well, at least not publicly.
Not usually at our age category either.
They're a little more reserved.
And, these doors are opening as I'm running down the hall. Like, what is going on in this building? It's like, oh.
Just some crazy Americans.
Anyway, the story got told further and further over there, not necessarily by us, but by other people who, saw this event happening. So be a little more discreet, maybe out in the woods or something, pick a tree that you can find a safety, or do it at home. But anyway, we were just on such a long trip. I just had to bring some fun into our lives.
But they love it too, because when we share these principles, in fact, one of the gentleman that was involved in the meetings that we were having in Romania, we go over that. We've been there every year for the last 9 years and helped to sponsor an orphanage over there as well. But we were out for a walk, and and he came up beside us in his car, and he rolled down the window, and he says, "Catch me if you can." But, if we want our families to really be successful in whatever line we want success, what we consider success is having a family that's really connected, no matter how old they get, okay? And it won't happen by accident. It happens by design. But I'll tell you that every family here, whether it's just the two of you, whether it's a single-parent family, whatever the case is, one of the things that you can do is go home and say, let's start having some regular communication. That may seem foreign a little bit to everybody. Let's be willing to have a family council if we need some changes. And then the best thing we can do is really listen. And don't say, wait, don't, because maybe we're part of the problem in the family. And there's nothing greater than a young person seeing that parents will take responsibility for our side. Not get defensive. And then really have some recreation time and say, what would you like to do? You want to go for a bike ride? What would you like to do? And it will make a tremendous difference. And for us, in our family, last but certainly not least, is really bringing God into the beginning of every day as a family. Come together for family worship. We made family worship a very practical time, a very important time. And then close every day again with having a time together. Because for us, true success in any line will not happen just because of us.
That's right.
It happens because we put our trust in God, who wants our highest success as a family, who wants the love of the family to grow and strengthen. And family can truly be first.
So are you excited? I hope so, because I'm excited. I love talking on this subject because I know the difference it can make. It's made in our lives. We've seen it make in our young people and in many, many other families. So process it. Personalize it for what meets your needs. Be intentional, because what is in the forefront of our minds is what gets done, and what is in the back of our minds rarely surfaces. So we have to be intentional and make time to make our family the priority it should be. So we'd like to close with prayer. So if we can bow our heads. Father, we thank you that we as your children were important to you and that you put us first. Even though you were very busy, you sacrificed Jesus Christ to bring your children and keep us ever close to you with the promise of eternity. Help us to see the importance of translating that into our own families, that our families can be forever bonded by the bonds of love and respect. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.